Juan Soto went to the Mets. And now I have to get out of here, but I have to say really quickly, Juan Soto going to the Mets kind of is what it is. And there's a very interesting clause in the contract that makes me feel a little bit better today than I did last night. But Juan Soto left the Yankees and decided that apparently the Mets are a better choice long-term as a winning team. I don't know if I agree with him, but that's what they're saying. So Juan Soto got a 15-year, $765 million contract. Here's the interesting caveat. He can opt out after 2029. So he can play 5 years under this contract and then opt out and try to renegotiate a new deal with the Mets or go renegotiate somewhere else. But another interesting thing broke overnight. The Mets have the option to invalidate that player opt-out. But if they do that, they have to pay him an extra $5 million per year, which would take his annual salary to $55 million a year, which would take the overall value of the contract from $765 million all the way up to $805 million. Now, you might be saying to yourself, like Nico is here, boo. Or like T from the TO3, Juan Soto, you bum. Here's what I'll say. Good for Juan Soto getting that money. That's absurd. I cannot imagine wanting to pay any human being that amount of money to play a sport or to do anything, quite frankly. That's an absurd amount of money. Am I disappointed that the Phillies weren't even engaged? Yes. And I think we're allowed to have those two things working in tandem. I think you are totally within your right to say, hey, I'm glad the Phillies didn't give this guy potentially over $800 million on a 15-year contract that I think will take him till he's 41 years old. And at the same time, you can also be pissed off that the Phillies weren't involved. And here's what I'll say. Right now, and especially based on recent comments, it sure feels like the Phillies, at least right now, are preparing the fan base for, we're going to run this shit back. We're going to run it back. Now, Anthony Sanfilippo last night, at the end of the press row show, we talked about this very briefly. He's like, I don't think they're going to run it back. I think they're going to make changes. The public comments to this point have been, we don't really need to make that many changes. We'll make some small tweaks here and there. The New York Mets just went out and got the best free agent in Major League Baseball. The Dodgers have continued to put their nonsensical contracts with deferred money in place because Rob Manfred doesn't have the cojones to stop them or to put any kind of structural thing into the CBA, an addendum perhaps, that these players should get paid now instead of like 20 years from now. The Dodgers have gotten better. The Mets, who are in your division, just went out and dropped beaucoup bucks to get better. And it sounds like Jeff Passan said on Scott Van Pelt's show last night that the Mets aren't done, that they're going to keep spending money. If I have to get Wish.com's Mr. Rogers, a.k.a. Dave Dombrowski, coming out here in the next couple of weeks saying, well, we tried. We explored a few things, but we're happy with our team. I will lose my mind. My head might pop off of my shoulders. It legitimately might. And right now, it sure feels like the Phillies are trying to tell people, don't get your hopes up. I don't know what hopes there are to get up. There's no one else out there on the free agent market that gets me all hot and bothered. There's nobody that I think right now is a legitimate game changer the way that obviously Juan Soto would have been. Now, could the Phillies ultimately trade Nick Castellanos or trade Turner or Alec Boehm? Maybe. Could they trade Ranger Suarez? Maybe. Are any of the players they're going to get back legitimate game-changing players? My hunch as of right now is no, because I have yet to see a name rumored in Major League Baseball as being on the trade block that could impact your team the way that a Juan Soto could have. It doesn't mean that they're screwed, and it doesn't mean that the Phillies are going to fall off the face of the earth. But the Braves are still very good. The Mets just got better and apparently want to keep getting better. The Dodgers got better. We don't even have to look at the American League. It is going to be such a bloodbath as currently constituted in the National League next year. If you're the Phillies, you better figure it out. And you better figure it out pretty freaking fast. Otherwise, these fans that decided they were going to jump on the bandwagon at the end of the year, right, because they didn't really believe that you guys could perform in the postseason. They watched you down the stretch play a lot of 500 baseball, but they got hyped for Red October and watched you get your teeth kicked in by the same Mets team that just signed Juan Soto. Those people aren't coming back if they feel like there's no chance of this team even competing in the regular season. So the Phillies have some significant work to do. And we will cover all of that over the next few weeks, the next few months, here on the Russ Joy Show, which is now Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 times a week. Matthew Ryan saying, so you're saying the Phillies have no chance for at least 5 more years? No, I'm not saying that. But they need to legitimately make some moves. Phantom67 says it's crazy money, because it is. Reed DeFord, run it back for the 4th time. Sounds great. Yeah, ask the Philadelphia Union how that worked out. Jamie says, looked for the Harper extension storyline to increase this season thanks to Soto. And Landros, too, saying, yo, Harper won't be happy. I'm going to tell you something. I would much rather... Oh, no, I'm not going to say it. If my options... Shit. This is how I feel, though. It's not shtick. It's real. If my options for the Phillies were give Bryce Harper another extension or trade him, I might be open to trading him. As of right now, there's no cap in baseball. It doesn't look like there ever will be a cap. If John Middleton's going to keep being the owner and he's willing to pay that money, then fine. But if that money is going to kind of linger in the back of his mind as a reason to not go out and make another big splash, or is going to give Dave Dombrowski some kind of cover to not go out and make a big splash and to make the team better, then you might have to have a conversation. I don't know how you could give Bryce Harper an extension. I genuinely don't. The injuries piled up this year. And I will simply point out west to a guy that a lot of people wanted in this town, who won multiple MVPs, and I have to tell you, Mike Trout is not even I wouldn't even touch Mike Trout with a 10-foot pole. Harper had a bunch of injuries this year, and that was also coming off of the tear in his elbow. I don't think that contract's going to age well. There is no reason to add on to the end of it. That is all. Dirk says, anyone is fair game if it improves the team. This is also a business, not a party. Jimmy King says, Russ throwing strays at the Union out of left field. So right, though. No matter how good your team is, you have to keep things fresh and improve. I love the Union, right? I will always love the Union. I'm glad that Philly has a soccer team. I wish Jay Sugarman would sell that team. But they are, case in point, like they are a perfect example of why you can't just run it back. That was a team that was within minutes of winning MLS Cup. And Mbaizo let Gareth Bale run to the far post. Header. You go to extra time. You lose. You lose MLS Cup. And they kept running it back. And then they missed the playoffs. Not ideal.